Hi, and welcome back to the Perio Patient Podcast. This is episode 51, and I'm Dr. Ben Young, a practicing periodontist in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you to everyone who has commented and liked this podcast. Its purpose is both broad and narrow. It's narrow in that I want to be able to speak from the aspect of periodontal health, but it's broad in that I jump from one area to another in order to show that even focused topics like gum health intersect with everything in some way or another. I remember listening to a radio program many years back that was being hosted by the distinguished professor of economics at George Mason University. His name was Walter E. Williams. I have a link to his Wikipedia page below. He was a very important voice, I believe, and he just passed away December 2 at the age of 84. He asked a question about how many people does it take to move a banana to my local marketplace where I can buy it. Then he took an advertising break. I started to think what the answer might be, and when he came back on, I was off by probably billions of people. To move a banana grown in another country to my local marketplace requires the support of everything from national leaders to banks to shipping companies to grocery store people to people who build the stores or built the stores and roads and computers and the rest. So all the inventions, everything had to be peaceful. It's an amazing number. In other words, our economy, which includes the periodontal health of people along with all other aspects of their health, is the product of the efforts of all generations to this point and everyone who currently is working right now. It is also currently a peaceful process thanks to trade practices and free economic conditions under agreed to laws. When all of this breaks down, bananas and lots of other things don't show up in plentiful supplies at reasonable prices in grocery stores around this country or many other countries, all who are exercising free trade practices and laws. So, my connection with you has to do with my interest in an aspect of dentistry within a broader aspect of medicine, and what I think I can share with you in terms of selected topics that might give you ideas that then spark your interest in topics, especially your own health. Because I believe that a lot of what helps us stay healthy is how we think. Recently, I enrolled myself into a course online on the subject of personality. I have no financial interest in this if you decide to check it out, so I'm simply sharing with you what I happen to be doing in order to grow mentally, and links are in the show notes. I have this idea that what I think affects my health. Often, I find my thinking to be fear-based, and what I have concluded from this observation is that fear is the lack of purposeful thought. It's sort of like my brain slips out of gear and starts running in neutral. A lot of noise and no forward momentum. Another way to look at this is when I start to worry, it results in my thinking going down roads that are usually circular. Same result as running in neutral. And most importantly, I find this to be unhealthy. So, rather than do this, I try to stop and identify what seems to be bugging me, and then try to understand first why this might be, and second, what I might do about it. If I can't figure it out, then I go and talk to others I like and trust, and who like and trust me. a small circle of friends, let's say. This is working on the idea that I cannot change the mess in my own head solely from within the mess in my own head, which means it is of little help for me to give myself pep talks or to tell myself to stop thinking something or thinking in a certain way. Instead, I have to find information outside myself to replace the thinking in me that is causing emotional disruption. I remember hearing somewhere in my distant past that who we are or become is equal to the people we meet and the books we read. A bit oversimplified perhaps, but still useful and I think mostly true. Which brings me back to what I'm up to at the moment, taking this online course on the subject of personality. So far, I have listened to about 30 minutes of an introduction to the 8 upcoming lectures I will hear later at my own pace. And here so far are a few takeaways. First, most of us are familiar with the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI they call it, which is a personality test because it is the most popular one in the world. According to a New Yorker article, linked below, more than 2 million people take it every year. It's big in industries trying to figure out who to hire, who not to hire. Well, what I did not know was that its development was not scientific. I'll let you read about it on your own with the link I've attached. I learned this as part of the explanation as to where research in psychology has moved since then, and it's described as a 1930s theory. Following the introduction I listened to, I then took a new personality inventory, which was paid for as part of the course. This will allow me to listen to the upcoming lectures and relate the information to how I personally scored. What kind of personality do I have? And I will tell you it was a bit surprising, not a lot, but a little. What I find most interesting about this particular test is that I can take it only once in my lifetime, or at least until I've forgotten that I ever took it, I suppose. If I were to take it again, my answers would be biased based on knowing about the test and my earlier results. So it's best to take the test, at least according to the instructions, when someone is not rushed or hungry or particularly irritated about life, which I think I was able to achieve when I took it. So it gives you have to be in more of a neutral state of being. Something else that might be valuable to some is the fact that this particular report can be used as a relationship report with somebody else. In other words, 2 people take it and then they can be linked together to create what is called a relationship report. You can know now how you relate with somebody else, and that would be useful, say, in premarital counseling, as an example. Let me read you the background on how this particular test was developed, and Dr. Jordan B. Peterson was part of this, as it'll explain. Over the last 50 years, specialists in the measurement of personality, which is a field known as psychometrics, have been applying advanced statistical techniques such as factor analysis to study the language people use to understand themselves and each other. This is called the Lexical Hypothesis. Lexical is defined as relating to the words or vocabulary of a language. The primary guiding idea behind such work is each and every human language contains a relatively complete description of the important similarities and differences between individuals. Language has encapsulated such description because human beings are exceptionally social and need to understand each other to cooperate effectively and avoid conflict. Most of the work done to understand personality has been conducted on the adjectives that people use to describe each other, words such as happy, sad, nice, hardworking, and creative. Psychometric specialists have given extensive lists of such adjectives, sometimes as single words, sometimes as phrases, and sometimes as sentences, to many thousands of people, and used statistical techniques referred to earlier to determine how the words group together. People who are likely to describe themselves as sad, for example, are also more likely to describe themselves as fearful, anxious, uncertain, and volatile, and less likely to describe themselves as cool, collected, calm, and stable. The same applies in other domains. People who are nice are compassionate, empathic, caring, and soft, while their polar opposites are hard, competitive, blunt, and tough. 5 such dimensions of variation, the Big Five it's called, have been identified cross-culturally. The 2 just described correspond to neuroticism and agreeableness, respectively. The 3 remaining dimensions include extroversion, which is a measure of sociability, conscientiousness, a measure of dutifulness and reliability, and openness to experience, a measure of creativity and interest in ideas. The understandmyself.com process, based on a personality scale known as the Big 5 Aspects Scale, and it gives the developers' names to include Jordan B. Peterson. This was developed in his lab, extends the Big 5 description and breaks down each one of the 5 into 2 higher resolution aspects each. So now let me go over the 5 big ones again and the breakout traits. These are all on a scale of 1 to 100. The first is agreeableness. Am I more or less agreeable when interacting with others? This is a question of how nice am I? Or the opposite, how stubborn or ornery am I? And there are positive and negative aspects of being closer to one end or the other. If I have high agreeableness, it means people will like me, and also that I am possibly a pushover when people want me to agree with them about things. Agreeableness breaks down into 2 aspects of personality, which they describe as compassion and politeness. The next of the Big 5 aspects is conscientiousness. This breaks down to industriousness and orderliness. Number 3 is extroversion. This breaks down to enthusiasm and assertiveness. Number 4 is neuroticism, which breaks down into withdrawal and volatility. And finally, number 5 is openness to experience, which breaks down into openness and intellect. Obviously, there's a lot to all of this that I yet do not appreciate in any depth, but look forward to learning more as I go through the lectures. If I learn anything I think might be interesting or useful to share, I certainly will. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. And thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Perio Patient Podcast, a podcast produced for the entertainment and enlightenment of my own patients and anyone else who cares to listen. Have a great day. A dog gave birth to puppies near the road and was cited for littering. Now go